Right. So after the last 48 hours, which I basically spent building an app, which I will, well, I'll have some videos posted about that soon. I've been doing a lot of reflecting at the minute. I've been feeling incredibly cooped up because I basically haven't left this house for like the last week, or at least not substantially. And I'm going to be here for like a month and a half. And I'm in Lisbon at the moment, staying with my grandpa, and the house is pretty much it's not anywhere near like the city center. It's pretty far out, and I'm still in the process of getting my driver's license, which is exceptionally long for all kinds of reasons, in my case. But anyway, that means I'm here for a very long time, and it's really annoying, and it's just been really frustrating because like there's nothing within walking distance, so there's just a whole lot of work and yeah. But I was also reflecting on the last 48 hours because I was incredibly productive and it felt really good fun, like really good fun because like, well, specifically I wanted to reflect a little bit on like what made it so productive and what made it so good, because I got a lot of stuff done, and it wasn't, it was all kinds of like flow states. And I think one of the nicest thing was that I was my focus was really uninterrupted, even though I had like physical interruptions in my calendar. What I mean by that is like I had a couple calls that were scheduled during those days and I could not move them, things like client calls, whatever, and I had to take them. But I'd take them and then I'd be back, my headspace would like immediately gear back into the code right after, and I'd be like right back on it. And that was something that was really useful. And so since then, after that, I've just been thinking, okay, how can I replicate that and basically do more of these things? And that does not mean necessarily making apps, but how do I replicate that, intense focus? What are the conditions that created that focus? And I don't think it's as simple as, sitting down and like scheduling things and that kind of, that kind of process. I think there's a couple key features that I've been thinking about. I think one of them is a very clear outcome to which I know how to get there, right? So I know like the app that I was building was just within my like, it was very much within my realm of competency, and I could also push myself and push my boundaries. And so I had a fair deal, like I had a fair amount of like challenge and creative thinking. Okay, how do I figure this out? But also one of the things which drains the most energy and disrupts the focus states the most is when you hit a blocker, the kind of thing that you cannot by yourself unblock. And so, if you hit some, this has been the issue. Actually, I'm trying to deploy the application right now and I'm facing some like type errors and stuff. And it's being a huge pain to debug. And like that stuff slows you down a lot. And so I'm trying to think, right, so I need to recreate something where there's a clear outcome. There's a very specific, tangible outcome. There's a very well-defined task to which I'm building and building toward. And second to that is I know how I'm building toward it. I did a little bit of a planning process. I had thought about how I want to design things. So that was a really big part. So the roadmap was very clear, and it was just about fulfilling and executing on that. And that meant that I could think about nothing else except just that. And every step was like it was relatively clear. And every once in a while I would pause and consider, what am I going to do next? But like there's a clear step of next few things that I have to do. And I'm just allocating between which of those go first. But I don't have to be thinking long term. And I find this is something, I spend a lot of time thinking about like what I'm working on and what's worthwhile to spend my time on. And one of the reflections I'm having is, okay, like these 48-hour sprints can be incredibly productive, but in order to do that, I have to very clearly define the goals beforehand and write a brief for myself such that during that period of intense focus, there's no part of me that is questioning whether this is the right thing to work on or not. That is what disrupts a lot of my work, is if I start doing something and I think, oh, should I do this? Should I not? Whatever. This hackathon was also easy because my brain gears into that kind of thinking of like, is this the highest leverage activity that I should be doing? Or, is there something else that I could be spending my time on? My brain didn't switch into that as it usually does because I knew it was a 48-hour block. And I knew that like, Oh, okay. Even if it's like there were a bunch of reasons that I was doing it, but also it's 48 hours, it's 2 days, it's nothing insane to lose. You're not losing a month or a week on a task. So if I identify something that is definitely worthwhile and I dedicate 48 hours to that, then that's really good. Also, you can't, like obviously you need consistency in things. And so like over a long period of time, you have to be working on the same thing. I'm a big believer in that like singular focus. But within those sprints, like on a more micro level, you have to identify the right things to do. And I think like this is something that I want to try out, is like writing briefs for 48-hour sprints and executing on those sprints basically, and doing nothing except that task. And so all other kind of like maintenance tasks, replying to emails, replying to things, anything that is non-essential, non-urgent work, just, I don't need to do that. And I find that's like, I've been trying to cut out more focus blocks, but what I tend to find is I end up spending those, like I might be working well, but like I'm not really sure what task I'm on. And so if I define in 48-hour sprints, that's probably a little bit longer, like enough to actually complete a significant portion of work, right? In 4 hours, you're not able to do something. And yeah. Anyway, that's what I've been thinking. So I'm gonna go now to just my computer and just organize the tasks from the last couple of days, which I've left pretty unorganized just because I've been 100% focused on that hackathon thing, and then kind of create my own next hackathon. And then I'll try to execute that in a context that's outside of code, and I'll see how that goes. And I think I'm pretty interested to see how it goes. I think it's like, I haven't tried this as a model to work before. I've tried, cutting out like 4-hour blocks of focus time and stuff like that, but I'm curious what I can do with like, if I cut out bigger chunks. And I really just stick to those, but we'll see if I can execute on that or not. Yeah, then I would also have to kind of like schedule my week accordingly, to make sure I have like as many 48-hour little blocks as possible. But yeah, it was some of the best focus I've had in a while, and I want to replicate that, and I want to focus on like what are all the conditions that I need. It's not just like clear outcome. It's not just knowing, the steps to get there. But it's also not having to worry about anything else, not having other pressing things immediately. So yeah, I'm gonna go do that. As I was actually just getting into that, so I was just starting my work, like kind of like focusing back in, dialing back in on things. One of the things I realized, one of the components of why I focused so well was also because I was very focused on creating something that I also know that I can show to people. Like I'm producing some kind of outcome that I want to be proud of and to show to the world. And I think that's actually a really important component of that. Is kind of looking forward to being able to show people something. I think like, rule number one is just work with what you have. And if you have a sense of pride in your work, like that is something you should leverage. And I know that I've typically been one to have that. Like I want to do good work, very, very good work, because I take a lot of pride in the stuff that I do. And I think knowing that I was going to have to present this to somebody made me want to take it that much more seriously. And I think that is a really big thing as well. It's like, how can I work towards something that I'm going to produce and show the world? And that is also, I think, a key component of like a very, very good sprint is you want to also create something that you're able to showcase. And something, some kind of vehicle that you can take pride in. Because that, I think, drives a lot of attention to detail, and that is really, really good in order to produce kind of better outcomes, I think. So yeah, that was another little reflection I thought I'd add.